Welcome to Flourish Focus, a series featuring one-on-one exchanges with fintech innovators around the world. I'm Arjuna Costa, Managing Partner at Flourish Ventures. As a global fintech investor, our focus is identifying technology innovations that at their core help directly or indirectly advance financial health and economic resilience for people and small businesses. We've been investing in digital gig worker platforms around the world for years, in the US, in LATAM, and in other emerging markets. Gig workers we define as those that rely on digital platforms for their jobs. They've been vital to regional economies, and during this past year have been particularly hard hit by the global pandemic. Today, I'm thrilled to talk to one of our LATAM portfolio companies, Heru, a startup that provides the first comprehensive digital worker service platform in Mexico. Joining me for this discussion is CEO and co-founder Mateo Jaramillo.
Arjuna, thank you for having me. Really happy to be here and have this discussion with you.
Great, Mateo. Why don't we dive right in? For those in the audience that haven't heard of Heru, why don't you start by just explaining what Heru is to the rest of us?
Heru is both a technology platform that builds tailor-made services for the gig economy and independent workforce in Latin America, and an online and offline solution to meet their financial needs. And we're also building a community for independent workers in Latin America.
That's interesting, Mateo. There's been so much talk about digitization and businesses moving online, shedding the offline components of their business. Yet when you told me at the highlights of Heru, you mentioned this offline component. Do you want to dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yes, it's a really interesting part of our business, and actually how Heru started is because we saw the need of most of these gig economy workers live in the outskirts of the city in Latin America and migrate daily to the bigger cities in Latin America, but they have no place to go. They have no safe places within these big cities, and that's why we started Heru. Partially is because we wanted it to provide safe spaces for the gig economy workers within the city. So that's how we started. We had places that we called Heru Casas, where gig economy and independent workers in the region can find the solution to many of the day-to-day needs.
Heru Casa, tell me a little bit more about what that is like. How do people find out about it? How do they use it? What's the company providing for them? It seems like you're building a real community around this casa. Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, of course. So yeah, definitely the community plays a huge role in what we're building at Heru. And one of the things that we know for a fact is that these gig economy workers, they feel they do not belong anywhere. So what we thought is, why don't we build these physical spaces within the big cities in Latin America, starting with Mexico City, to provide sort of the feeling of when you get to the usual store that for example, Starbucks, when you travel abroad. So we want to provide safe spaces within the big cities for the gig economy workers to have access to bathrooms, to have access to tools to fix their vehicles, to have access to Wi-Fi, charging stations, and basically a place where they can can build a community offline, and also have the chance to communicate and to interact with other gig economy workers. That's the basis of what we wanted it to build at Heru and how it started.
You used a couple of words that I found really powerful, Mateo. This idea of belonging and the idea of community. What does a casa look like? Are you actually building big physical houses? Are you renting out space? And I presume a lot of this is helping these gig economy workers build a trusted relationship with Heru as a business that's looking out for their best interests. How are you building those bonds of trust?
It is very, very interesting, because actually trust is at the bottom of what we're building, is a main pillar of what we're building. And these physical spaces helped, first of all, position our brand and get ourselves out there and get people to know us through these physical spaces. And it was actually it is the start of Heru. And on top of the Heru Casas and the community that we've built, we've developed many products because we had the chance to talk to our users in these Heru Casas, understand their main pain points, and then build products and services based on that interaction that we had. So it was the first thing that we built, and today continues to be a very important part of Heru. But on top of that, we've built tech solutions and digital solutions in our platform, our digital platform, which is an application, and all of our users have access to additional services based on that first interaction that they have in these physical spaces. And yeah, that is what we believe is we want to actually care for this community. It is a growing community. It is our community that unfortunately, because of the pandemic, suffered a lot, and it is a very vulnerable part of this society, and we wanna build that trust and that those spaces where they feel safe, and that's what we do it, and that's how we started it.
So these casas are a safe haven for the workers. They're a marketing tool and a brand awareness tool for Heru. And what you said was fascinating, which is it's a real life, real time product marketing and product testing tool to get customer feedback. What is the product and service that you're building through the app? That's the digital side of your business, Mateo.
Yes, Arjuna, and that's actually really interesting because we were able to build products based on actual real feedback from our users, and we build that through the interaction on a day-to-day basis in the Heru Casas. And the first product that we developed is an insurance product that covers gig economy workers, especially gig economy workers who deliver food, in case of an accident insurance. So this insurance specifically covers them with a daily stipend so they can continue to support their families, even though they're not able to work. We built this in partnership with an insurance company, and it has been an awesome product because it is tailored and specifically covers a very important need for the gig economy workers. The second one is, for example, a automated tax declaration product, which back in 2020, last year, the regulation in Mexico changed for the gig economy workers, and everybody who works for an on-demand app needs to do a monthly declaration process. So every month they need to declare their income. This is of course a very cumbersome process, a very difficult process, and we were able to automate the whole process within our application. There's also some cell phone plans, and then the access to the Heru Casas, and we're currently developing community as a product, which we believe is very important. We want to bring that interaction that happens offline in the Heru Casas and to an online channel, and we think our app is absolutely the best channel to do that in, and that's why now we're focused on building community as a product, for example.
Wow. So if I'm a member, and you call them members, right? Because you call this a community, not a customer, but rather a member. If I'm a member of Heru, you're just making my life so much easier. I come in from the outskirts of town into town. I've got a place where I can go and charge my phone. I don't have to worry about getting on a bike and going through the crazy traffic in Mexico City. Well, I have to, but at least I've got insurance on the back end that'll give me a stipend to keep my families fed and clothed. You're helping me with all this tax stuff. What's next? At some point, it seems like that your members are going to rely on you more and more for all these valuable financial services. When you look forward a year or 18 months, what would you be like to provide these members of yours?
That is a very interesting question. We definitely see ourselves as a sort of the company that helped organize, and this is probably not the best use of the word, but organize the gig economy workforce in Latin America. It is a trend that continues to grow. There are already many people who rely on these on-demand or gig economy jobs in Latin America, and the trend will continue to move in that direction. And we definitely want to be the company that first develop products to serve them as an individual and as a group and as a community, and not the other way around, not necessarily, which is really important and very important. And my co-founder and I did make part of that first wave of companies who helped build the tech gig economy workforce as we know it today in Latin America, and we can get that in a bit. But definitely, we see ourselves as Heru. We see as the one platform where gig economy workers and independent workers in the region find a solution for everything that they need, and also it's a way to make their work life more robust and have a brighter expectations of the future, organize themselves, and also build that community, which is important. We ourselves, we're very fortunate to count on co-workers and people around us in our working spaces with which we build a community. Most of the gig economy workers, they're individuals and they act as individuals, not as a group. And that is very important to also expand, to continue to grow, to develop yourself as a professional in what you do. And we want to be that company. We want to be that company that empowers them and builds for them. So that is what we're expecting in the future. Many good things to come in the next couple of months. So we're looking forward to 2021.
Mateo, that's a powerful and important mission, right? These people in so many ways are just faceless to those of us that use the service, but you're putting them back at the center and building products and services around their lives to make their lives more convenient, easy, and provide safety nets and opportunities to grow. That's wonderful. Maybe we switch gears a little bit. You talked about your co-founder and you having experience in the gig work world more generally. What led you to become an entrepreneur? Tell me about your story and, of course, your co-founder, Stephen.
Yes. We were both, my co-founder and I, Stephen and I, were very fortunate to be part of that first wave of companies that helped build the tech gig economy scene in Latin America. Both of us worked for Uber for more than 6 years. We helped launch more than 10 cities in the region, and then we're part of the central operations team in Latin America. And we got to see that first wave and build that as we know it today in Latin America. And so that was the start of everything. And now with Heru, we want to be that first wave of companies or second wave of companies that actually build products and services for the gig economy workforce, which is something completely new in Latin America. So we feel very, very fortunate to have had that experience. And of course, I think I'm very lucky to count on a co-founder that I can rely on and that I can also complement myself a lot with. We both come from different backgrounds, but had a similar experience, and that actually has helped us a lot in what we currently do at Heru.
Now, Mateo, I know both Stephen and you are Colombian, and you started with Uber in Colombia. You're now entrepreneurs in Mexico. Clearly, LATAM, you're building regional businesses. What's the experience like being a startup founder from Colombia in Mexico, raising capital from American institutional investors and the like? This is clearly a global business right here.
It is, and again, we feel very, very lucky to have had this process. We're both from Colombia. We moved to Mexico City about 4 years ago, 4 years and a half, to work for Uber and build the central operations team here, based out of Mexico City. And I think the whole experience has given us a lot of many new learnings and lessons learned. I think. I had to strip myself of many of the conceptions I had of myself to go through this whole process. And I think being a foreigner in Mexico City building a company in Mexico has actually helped me a lot, because I think as an entrepreneur, you need to have lack of intimidation, and you need to strip out of any intimidation that you have. And I think being Colombian in Mexico helps me a lot, because many things I didn't understand, and that's a good point to start with, because if you don't understand, you explore it on your own, and you actually do the process and the work to get things done. Many of us have preconceptions, and many of those preconceptions actually intimidate you. So having that lack of intimidation was very important for the entrepreneurship process.
That's a great point. So not being intimidated. Any other little bits of advice that you would give want to be founders or would be founders, Mateo? Because people who tune into this might look at you and go, okay, what can I be inspired by Mateo's story? Anything else that you would share?
I think in general, I would say there's two things. One is growing economies like the ones we see in Latin America are going through a very important change, and there's a lot of focus in regions like Africa, Asia, some parts of Asia, Latin America, because some of the newer generations are actually using the technology to change and to improve many of the things that we have in Latin America. So I think we need to leverage on that. We need to believe in ourselves. There was me in my first process at fundraising. I felt very intimidated, but then I stripped myself out of all those preconceptions, and actually I think believing in yourself is I know it sounds very cheesy, but it is actually true, and we can make a huge change in our communities and in our regions if we actually believe in ourselves. And Yeah, I think that is probably the most important part. And then I would say the second one is it is actually 1% luck and 1% fundraising and 99% sweat. I think sweat and hard work is actually what gets the company or the idea at the other side of that end goal. So, yep.
Well, you've got a noble mission. You've got inspiring founders. What's the team like, Mateo? Have you been able to recruit and build a team that's on this journey with you?
Yes, we have a very inspiring team. It's 23 of us now in the team. Many of them are Mexican, but we also have members from other parts of Latin America, Argentina, for example, Colombia. So we're very fortunate to have a multicultural type of team. Also a diverse team, which is something at Uber we learned in the importance of building a diverse team since day one. And I know diversity has many colors and many definitions, but we're trying to make things right, what it feels right for us since the beginning. So that has been an awesome process. Building a team is always fun, is always challenging. It's always it pushes your boundaries as well as a founder to build the best culture, for example, which is very important, which will eventually help you build the upcoming generations of your company. So building culture, selecting the correct people for your team. So that has been a very fun and exciting challenge.
You mentioned fundraising. You've been successful in doing that in a pretty challenging year in 2020 when there was a lot of dislocation. It was hard to travel. It was hard to build relationships. You and Stephen were successful in raising capital for Heru to continue to fund its growth. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process?
Okay. Yes, definitely the fundraising process, it was a new process for me and one that was super, super challenging. It was a difficult process, again, because I had many preconceptions of myself as a founder, as a professional. And of course, I had to strip that away and just be me and just push myself forward. And for example, storytelling was something that was very new for me and something that I had to learn at a different speed that I had learned other things. So that was very challenging. And then I also learned in the process that fundraising is not the end goal. The end goal is to actually build a company and to actually put your effort into building the best company. And I think then if you do that correctly, the correct investors will come. And I think to be honest, we're also very lucky that we had the investors that we had today. But I think it was a result of doing the things correctly. We focused on two things mainly on our fundraising process: is being very transparent, and being very true to what we want to build. I think that was important for us, but it was also very important to communicate that in the process of fundraising, because you do not want to have investors who believe you are building something and in the end you build something else. So it is also very important for us to be very transparent, build relationships more than be just a one-off thing. I think was very important. We, for example, with Flourish, we had been speaking for at least 8 months before we actually 7 months before we actually got the investment, and it was more of building that relationship. And in the end, I think the correct investors will come. Of course, it is a difficult process. You need to relearn many things that you had learned, but it's always part of the challenge. It's part of the process, and we enjoyed it, despite it, of course, being challenging.
Mateo, this has been fascinating. I think how you learned about the problems from the inside when you were at Uber, then I embarked on a journey to solve some of those issues that you identified, built a company around a strong mission, building a strong culture with a co-founder, and then really, as you said, being authentic, being transparent, and being relationship driven. You've got all the key ingredients to build something successful. Very quickly, what does 2021 hold?
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to continue to develop some of the features of one of our products, which is the automated tax declaration product. We have seen a lot of traction with that product, a lot of interest from our members, and of course, we are already piloting this product with some of the gig economy companies in Latin America. We have a pilot ongoing with Uber Eats for the Heru Casas. So we also see continuing to build and hone on that relationship with the gig economy companies, and also be part of their development and their progress. I think we need to play an important role for the gig economy worker, and we also need to play an important role for the gig economy company, because a lot of things are evolving, and we need to be there for when that time comes. We need to build together with them. This will not happen from the night to the morning. This will take some time, and we need to build that relationship with the gig economy worker, but also build that relationship with the gig economy company, and build together with them, for us to be able to build a better future for the whole gig economy workforce. And then we also see some very important products and services coming within that community. We're building, again, community as a product, and we see a great future there with that product. It's something that we're very excited about to build this year. So you will hopefully hear more about that in the next upcoming months.
Stay tuned, everyone. Mateo, I can't believe the time has run by so fast. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of all of the amazing work that you and your team are doing. I'd like to end by giving you a huge thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. We're all looking forward to seeing what comes in the next chapter of Heru's continued growth. Thank you.
Arjuna, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to have this conversation and continue to have this discussion going forward.
For those of you that have tuned in, again, on behalf of Flourish Ventures, this is Arjuna Costa. A huge thank you. I hope you took away some important lessons on the entrepreneurial journey, on building a startup, and on the power of having such a strong mission like Heru does. If you have any questions regarding today's discussion about us as Flourish Ventures or any of the portfolio and the work we do, please email us at events@flourishventures.com. Thank you again. This is Arjuna Costa saying good evening.